Hello, BMA family. Glad to see you. There are just a couple of thoughts I'd like to share with you right now. As many of you know, my family's been through a little bit of a situation the last few weeks. On May 10, my husband suffered a stroke, and that was followed by an emergency brain surgery. And as you might imagine, that kind of a situation makes a person ask questions. The biggest question is why? Why did this happen? How could this happen? And so I just wanted to kind of share some of my feelings and thoughts that circumstance kind of brought me through. I had prayed a long time ago that God would give me some kind of experience that would give me more empathy, help me to be more empathetic, because that's probably on my list of spiritual gifts. It's at the very bottom of the list. And I don't know that that's why this happened, but it certainly did have that effect. I found that I can empathize with people a little bit better. I talk to them more. I listen better. But the other thing that this has done is really stretched my faith, because there were moments when I didn't know if my husband was going to live or not. There have been a couple of doctors that have said, you realize that Stuart cheated death several times through the first few days of this. And so the question then was, well, why would this happen? What was God thinking? Where was God when this happened? Why didn't he prevent it from happening? And I know those are questions that lots of people ask. And so I just wanted to share a few verses with you from, I want to start with Job, because, wow, the story of Job is absolutely amazing when it comes to faith in God no matter what happens. Just to kind of summarize Job's story, he was a very faithful man. He loved God with all of his heart. He did the best he knew how to follow God's will for him, to do all of the things that God asked him to do, to worship faithfully, to command his family after him in that faith. And in spite of that, he lost everything. And we know from our perspective something that he didn't. We know that it wasn't God doing those things to him. It was Satan doing those things to him in an effort to destroy his faith. And so just that, I think, is something that we can learn a really good lesson from, that the bad things that happen to us in life are not from God. Satan is the one that will do anything to destroy our faith. But Job's faith was tremendous, and I wanted to share a couple of verses with you to illustrate that. The first one is Job 13, verse 10. And, he's been having this conversation with friends who are much less than supportive and helpful. And he says, at one point, he says, though he slay me, yet will I trust him. So he trusts God even if it means his own death. And that is a kind of faith to strive for. I don't think my faith is quite there yet, but I think God's working on me. Another one is this. He says, I know that my Redeemer lives, and he shall stand at last on the earth. And after my skin is destroyed, this I know, that in my flesh I shall see God, whom I shall see for myself, and my eyes shall behold, and not another, how my heart yearns within me. So Job knew that even if God's will for him was for his life to end, he knew that he would see God again in his flesh. That's one of those verses that gives us hope for the resurrection. And one other verse that from Job that I wanted to share. God does allow things to happen. He doesn't always stop Satan from doing his worst, and the story of Job is certainly an example of that. And through that trust, Job could say, "But he knows the way that I take. When he has tested me, I shall come forth as gold." God doesn't promise us that we will never have trouble. As a matter of fact, another verse came to mind when I was thinking through this, and that comes from Lamentations 3. This is one of my absolutely favorite verses in the Bible. Lamentations 3, and I think it's verses 21 to 23. Jeremiah wrote Lamentations, and he had been bewailing all the terrible things that had happened to him and the children of Israel. But then he says, "This I recall to mind, therefore I have hope. Through the Lord's mercies we are not consumed, because his compassions fail not. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness." So Jeremiah understood that we are sinful people, that what we deserve, if we compare ourselves, even the best of us, if we compare ourselves to God, we are worthy of death. And Jeremiah recognized that it is only through God's mercy that we're not consumed. The Bible says that God is a consuming fire, and it's only through his mercy that we're not consumed. And so that is another one that another verse that really helps me to understand when something terrible happens that we don't understand. It's not because God is doing terrible things to us. He holds us up through his mercy in that situation. Just a couple of other verses, and I'm gonna go to my phone here because it'll be faster, because I want to just kind of go through these ones quickly. Jesus said that in this world we will have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. So that gives us a great deal of hope. Jesus has overcome the world. So no matter what happens here, we know that he has it under control. This is a very, very famous verse. Even though things happen, bad things happen, God promises that he will go with us through those things. Psalm 23 verse 4 says, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me." And then the last verse that I want to share, and this was one that during the couple of weeks that my husband was in the hospital, this is the one that really held us up. It's from Isaiah 26 verse 3. It says, "You will keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on you, because he trusts in you."